And President Trump is going after Michael Cohen as a liar today after an explosive BuzzFeed report claimed federal investigators have evidence that the president instructed Michael Cohen to lie to Congress about negotiations to build a Trump Tower in Moscow. Democrats now demanding an investigation, with some calling for impeachment, while Trump's legal team is slamming the report and taking aim at Cohen himself. Live now to Chief White House correspondent John Roberts with the latest. John?
And getting more reaction from the president's outside legal team in just the last hour, Harris, in a statement that showed up in my inbox just a little while ago. Aty Giuliani saying, quote, any suggestion from any source that the president counseled Michael Cohen to lie is categorically false. Michael Cohen is a convicted criminal and a liar. To quote the prosecutors, he has traded on a pattern of lies and dishonesty over an extended period of time, and for that, he is going to pay a very, very serious price. Today's claims are just more made-up lies born of Michael Cohen's malice and desperation in an effort to reduce his sentence. Aty Giuliani's first statement earlier this morning was rather glib, saying, if you believe Michael Cohen, I've got a great deal on the Brooklyn Bridge for you, but being a little more serious about it now. Quoting two law enforcement officials, BuzzFeed News says Michael Cohen was told by the president to lie to Congress about plans to build a Trump Tower in Moscow, specifically the timeline for that and the president's involvement in it. The report also says that the president supported a plan during the campaign for him to travel to Russia to meet with Vladimir Putin and try to jumpstart the Trump Tower project. BuzzFeed quotes the president as saying to Cohen, quote, make it happen. We also got reaction from the White House this morning. Here's spokesman Hogan Gidley on it. Listen here.
This is absolutely ludicrous that we are giving any type of credence or credibility to a news outlet like BuzzFeed. They are responsible completely and totally for the release of a discredited, disproven, false dossier. And now the author of the piece in question that you're talking about went on air this morning and said he couldn't corroborate any of his own evidence. He ran it anyway.
But asked a couple of times by Bill Hemmer in that interview this morning whether or not they would issue a full denial of the allegations in BuzzFeed, Gidley kind of deflected. It has been the White House practice to not comment on this at all. So he kind of went a little further than they normally go anyways. Now, only BuzzFeed has this story. No one else, and we've been trying to, has been able to corroborate it. But here's something to keep in mind. The Office of Special Counsel interviewed Michael Cohen several times, spoke with him for lengthy periods of time, hours-long interviews with him, and sought fit to send a note to the judge who was involved in his sentencing hearing back in December to say, look, we think that he's been a valuable witness and we would recommend leniency in his sentencing. The judge, though, went with the recommendations of the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York on that. Harris?
All right. John Roberts, thank you very much.
Journalist Harris Faulkner. I want to start with you because when I heard this story and I see the smoking gun, you know, that's what they were calling this report, and I say, wow, you know, he must have texted or sent emails instructing him, you know, to lie. What exactly did the emails say? And I start searching through.
Let me guess, you couldn't find that.
They're not there.
That evidence.
And then we hear that one reporter said they didn't see the evidence. Yeah. They just heard about it. What's the danger in reporting stories like that, or would you go with that
Well,
yourself?
It's hard to take something back, you know, once you put it out there. And if it doesn't have the evidentiary basis that you need, it's problematic to then clarify. It's one thing to say something and you say I was wrong, but when you put information out and say that it is whole and then have to take that back, it's almost impossible to do. BuzzFeed has had its own problems. I mean, I do realize that when they outed the name of someone in the Trump case with the anti-Trump dossier, they won a court battle, but they lost perhaps the public relations battle of being believed all the time as a news organization that would lean heavily on evidence. So it's problematic when you put stuff out there. I would also say with BuzzFeed, remember, they floated that anti-Trump dossier out there before they, and I see you nodding, before they, it was like a test ground, you know, and then they released it. I'm curious to know what you're thinking.
Well, yeah, they reported the unverified dossier, which has taken massive credibility hits as of late. So clearly, I think that demonstrates sort of their standards. And we've also seen outlets like ABC and CNN also take it on the chin for these allegedly bombshell reports that turn out to not be true. So I think everything with this Trump era, you kind of wait to see how this is going to end up being.
Should be any era.
Well, exactly. But that's how it is in the Trump. And so I watch The Bachelor, and I feel like this is like Chris Harrison every season, who's like, this is the most dramatic season ever. And these reporters keep saying, oh, this is going to be the end of the road for the Trump administration. And then these stories fizzle. So I would say cautionary tale. Wait to see what other evidence comes forward, because right now this could be like all these other, reports that have ended up to be nothing.
If it's true, it's enormous.
Exactly. I think that we can all agree, big deal if true. And we're going to have to wait for that to happen. We've now seen Democrats for the first time coming out publicly and saying Bob Mueller should give us what we need in order to be able to question people and bring this to the committee level.
Does that make you feel more comfortable about all of this impeachment language and everything? There would actually be a push for facts?
I think there has been a push for facts all along. That it has not been my assessment that people are running on wild goose chases. To your point about the Steele dossier,
before it's done.
Well, if it was obstruction of justice, which this would be, that would be cause for impeachment. To Lisa's point about the dossier, I would say actually as of late, the Steele dossier has gained more credibility now that we know about the Trump Tower deal.
Let's not veer off in that direction. We just want to let Matt in on this one before we go back to that. Yeah.
President Trump does not email or text. He tweets, okay, and he uses his phone. So there's going to be no physical evidence for any of this. Number two,
he doesn't text at all?
Michael Cohen was his lawyer. And what Michael Cohen would be trying to get us to understand is that Donald Trump was Michael Cohen's lawyer. It was actually just the opposite. So that's absurd. He is a convicted liar. He has perjured himself. He's already admitted to that. He says sometimes he doesn't tell officials the truth, and now we're all to take him at his word that he is now a truth teller.
But he's not one of the sources for this.
He's already. We don't know.
We're not supposed to take him at his word.
Let me talk about the sources.
Okay, and that's the point.
That's what made this difference, was that it was more than
right.
Him DOJ
have told me that you wouldn't take him at his word. You would corroborate, hopefully, from 2 or 3 incidents of evidence.
But here's the other thing: is they're saying Trump told him to lie. So what the other piece here is, we're assuming that any direction or any conversation that the two of them had was maybe there's a disagreement over what the set of facts were, which is what a lot of this comes down to when you have these investigations. Leave it to the left to immediately paint it as a lie. We're going to have to look at all this.
That's why my first response to the story was exactly where you are, was, well, I need to see exactly what the text says or the message says, because I want to judge for myself what the conversation was about. And that's when you discover in the story, wait, we don't have the exact wording.
But we do have potentially something, Jessica, and I don't know because I haven't heard all of the surreptitious recordings that Michael Cohen was making of the president in their conversations. But I mentioned yesterday, kind of in the colloquial, that there might be receipts here. There might be some evidence that we don't know about that could even be on that. I don't know.
There's also another story that came out yesterday about $50,000 being, or actually $13,000 in a boxing glove being exchanged to rig online polls. And you did see Hogan Gidley and Kellyanne Conway both dodged the question explicitly about whether the president directed Michael Cohen to lie by saying, oh, I'm not going to address that, or Kellyanne saying the president addressed it himself. We have not gotten a denial.
None of this is collusion, and none of this is illegal, and this is absurd.
But where is this information coming from as well? Because the BuzzFeed article references the special counsel's office. And then additionally, it references federal law enforcement officials. We've already seen the FBI come under fire for leaking.
That's right.
And so, again, it appears
12
that
people have been fired.
Right. So where is this information coming from? Again, another anonymously
especially
sourced
the fact
article.
that no one else is able to corroborate it right
Exactly.
But so we wait to find out what they have and who those sources are. But for you to sit there and say no collusion, that has backfired.
Online
look at Rudy
polling? You really think that that's an abridgment
rigging
of the law?
A poll
oh
that's going off on the Drudge Report, which is where Donald Trump's base goes for their...
Impeach the president.
Matt, you're not actually taking what I'm saying to heart and responding to it. You're just coming out with euphemisms or saying, like Giuliani, like no collusion. And then he embarrasses himself with Chris Cuomo and he says, oh, I didn't say that when it was explicitly
So what do you want him to respond to?
I want you to respond to the fact that when they do have the number of indictments that they do, when they have cooperating witnesses like Rick Gates, Paul Manafort, Michael Cohen, when we've indicted 12 Russian trolls who said that they were involved with this, how can you sit there and say unilaterally no collusion?
Let me answer, because none of those people people were convicted on anything having to do with inappropriate or illegal behavior
really?
with the Russian
Donald Trump
government.
directing
None of them.
Michael Cohen to pay off
He has
women
not been indicted.
so that it is not affecting the election, which is explicitly what he did.
That is not illegal.
It isn't? It is a campaign finance violation.
It is not a campaign finance violation, and no one has been indicted over that.
I don't. Well, I guess when I read the same words as you, I must take them as some other liberal planet or something.
No, let's get to this. What you're trying to say is because the special counsel has made progress in going after people in the Trump orbit who did things that might have been illegal. We'll see. Some of them have pled.
So now we've gotten to we'll see
let
from
me
go.
let me just finish. Because there's all of that activity, that somehow proves that they must be right about the underlying charge of collusion with Putin's government. And I say that's quite a stretch, and it's inappropriate to say it.
No, saying that it's a stretch and saying no collusion are different. And we also have the story that Don Jr. made calls to a blocked number before he took that Trump Tower meeting. And Adam Schiff and the people on these committees.
We're actually doing that later in the show. I'm not cutting you off. We're doing it later in the show. So don't go away, anyone.